through. If you don't, that's okay. It's very simple. It's a song about Radha and Krishna in Vrindavan. And it starts as Jai Radha Madhav, Kunj Bihari, Jai Gopi Jana Vallabha, Girivaradhari. And then the final stanza is Yashoda Nandan, Raja Janan Ranjana, Yamna Tiravanachari. Okay. Jaya Radha Madhava Jaya Kunja Bihari 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 Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Jaya Girivaradhari 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 Jaya Yashoda Nandana Jaya Raja Jana Ranjana Jaya Yashoda Nandana Jaya Raja Jana Ranjana Yashoda Nandana Jaya Raja Jana Ranjana Jaya Yashoda Nandana Jaya Raja Jana Ranjana Jaya Yamuna Tiravanachari Jaya Kunja Bihari Jaya Yamuna Tiravanachari Jaya Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Jaya Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Jaya Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Jaya Kunja Bihari Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Hare Rama, Rama Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Rama, Rama Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Jaya Radha Gokula Nanda, Radha Gokula Nanda, Radha Gokula Nanda, Shri Radhe Gokula Nanda, Radha Gokula Nanda, Radha Gokula Nanda, Shri Radhe, Jaya Sita Ram Lakshman Hanuman, Jaya Sita Ram Lakshman Hanuman, Jaya Gauranitai, 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 Jaya Gauranitai, Jaya Tulsi Maharani, Jaya Vrinda Devi, Jaya Tulsi Maharani, Jaya Vrinda Devi, Jaya Jaya Prabhupada, 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 Jaya Srila Prabhupada, Jaya Jaya Prabhupada, 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 Jaya Srila Prabhupada, Nittai Gaura Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Nittai Gaura Hari Bol. Gaura Premanande, Hari Hari Bol. Okay, so before starting the class, I'll quickly recite Mangala Charan for blessings from all our gurus, and all the Vaishnavas who are present online and offline. And hopefully you can hear me online. You can hear? Sound okay? Okay. Make it a bit louder if you want. That's fine, so people online can hear it as well. So I'll start reciting the Mangalacharan. You can follow through if you know the words. That's fine. Om Agnanatimirandasya Gnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurum Militam Yena Tasme Shri Guruve Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhistam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadatmayam Dadati Swam Padantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Padakamalam Shri Gurum Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sagana Raghunatham Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Saitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padam Sagana Lalita Shri Vishakham Vitamscha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dina Bandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostate Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanusate Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vanchakalpatrubhyascha Kripa Sindhu Bevacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prishtaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Nitinamine Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschat Deshatarine Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Thank you very much. So we're going to be reciting and going through verse 47 of chapter 2 of the Bhagavad Gita. So chapter 2 is a summary of the Bhagavad Gita. And we reached verse 47. So the verse is on the screen. I'll recite it fully, and then I'll recite it again, but in parts where you follow and recite along with me. So I'll say the whole verse in one go, and then I'll do it again, and you can follow through. Karmanyevadikaraste ma phaleshu kadachana ma karma phalaheturbhur ma te sangostva akarmani. So I'll recite parts of it, and please follow through, and you can read on the screen. Karmanyevadikaraste ma phaleshu kadachana ma karma phalaheturbhur ma te sangostva akarmani. Karmanyevadikaraste ma phaleshu kadachana ma karma phalaheturbhur ma te sangostva akarmani. Karmanyevadikaraste ma phaleshu kadachana ma karma phalaheturbhur ma te sangostva akarmani. Would anyone like to recite? Karmanyevadikaraste ma karma phalaheturbhur ma te sangostva karmani. Any Prabhu? Karmanyevadikaraste ma phaleshu kadachana Ma karma phala heturbhur ma te sangostva karmani. Thank you very much. So I'll recite the word for word translations, and you can follow and repeat after me when I say each word in both Sanskrit and in English. Karmani, in prescribed duties. Sorry, I'll just get it up over here. Okay. We'll do it again. Karmani, in prescribed duties. Eva, certainly. Adhikara, right. Te, of you. Ma, never. Phaleshu, in the fruits. Kadachana, at any time. Ma, never. Karma phala, in the results of the work. Hetu, cause. Bhu, become. Ma, never. Te, of you. Sangha, attachment. Astu, there should be. Akarmani, in not doing prescribed duties. Okay, so the translation of this verse is as follows, and you can repeat after me. You have a right to perform your prescribed duty. But you are not entitled to the fruits of action. Never consider yourself the cause of the results of your activities. And never be attached to not doing your duty. Okay, so I'll repeat that again. You have a right to perform your prescribed duty, but you are not entitled to the fruits of action. Never consider yourself the cause of the results of your activities, and never be attached to not doing your duty. So I'm going to read the purport now, which is by His Divine Grace, Abhechar Narvinda Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada ki Jai. Do you mind taking that? Thank you. It'll be easy. Right. So I've got Mani Prabhu kindly doing the screen for me now. Thank you. So you can follow on the screen whilst I'm reading. That's fine. There are three considerations here: prescribed duties, capricious work, and inaction. Prescribed duties are activities enjoined in terms of one's acquired modes of material nature. Capricious work means actions without the sanction of authority, and inaction means not performing one's prescribed duties. The Lord advised that Arjuna not be inactive, but that he perform his prescribed duty without being attached to the result. One who is attached to the result of his work is also the cause of the action. Thus, he is the enjoyer or sufferer of the result of such actions. As far as prescribed duties are concerned, they can be fitted into three subdivisions, namely routine work, emergency work, and desired activities. Routine work performed as an obligation in terms of the scriptural injunctions without desire for results is action in the mode of goodness. Work with results becomes the cause of bondage. Therefore, such work is not auspicious. Everyone has his proprietary right in regard to prescribed duties, but should act without attachment to the result. Such disinterested obligatory duties doubtlessly lead one to the path of liberation. Arjuna was therefore advised by the Lord to fight as a matter of duty, without attachment to the result. His non-participation in the battle is another side of attachment. Such attachment never leads one to the path of salvation. Any attachment, positive or negative, is cause for bondage. Inaction is sinful. Therefore, fighting as a matter of duty was the only auspicious path of salvation for Arjuna. That ends the purport. So I'll repeat the verse again. Karmanevadikaraste ma phaleshu kadachana ma karma phale turbur ma tisangostva akarmani. You have a right to perform your prescribed duty, but you are not entitled to the fruits of action. Never consider yourself the cause of the results of your activities, and never be attached to not doing your duty. So, this is a very famous verse, and many people have grown up hearing this verse, either because they've grown up in India and they've heard it. Many of you may have also watched the original B.R. Chopra Mahabharat when growing up, and you may recall this verse is the very first verse that gets repeated before the whole title sequence of the Mahabharata and the Shank and all that happens. So when I grew up hearing this verse, it never kind of made sense to me why this verse is being, sung before the start of the Mahabharata TV series. But it's all to do about performing your duty, but not being entitled to your fruits of action. Now, if you hear this verse by itself, so many people have not always listened or read the Bhagavad Gita start to finish. But this verse, when you hear it by itself, it can confuse people. Because it can come across as saying, as Krishna saying to you, you do your hard work, but you're not entitled to the rewards. And that's confusing for a human being, because we have grown up and we're engineered to think that we work hard, we play hard. Whenever we work, we should receive rewards. But this isn't exactly what Krishna is saying. So this is one of the most misunderstood verses from the Bhagavad Gita. To understand it properly, we need to get the bigger picture. We need to know why Krishna has come to this point in chapter 2, in text 47, and is saying this instruction to Arjuna. Because this verse is a very important verse. It epitomizes one of the main messages of the Bhagavad Gita, which is the concept of Nishkam Karma Yoga, to do your duty and actions with selfless dedication and without being attached to the fruits of the results. So you're probably thinking, well, when you do some work, there should be some result, some sort of reward. But we're going to look at the bigger picture to understand what Krishna is saying here to Arjuna at the battlefield. So let's rewind back all the way to the beginning of the Bhagavad Gita. So the Bhagavad Gita is spoken on the battlefield of Kurukshetra. Now everyone knows what happened on the battlefield of Kurukshetra because we've grown up watching Mahabharata. There was a big fight. There was a big war. The war was between the Pandavas and the Kauravas, who were actually cousins. They were actually from the same family. So it was a big family feud, which played across the whole of India, Bharat, hence its Mahabharat war. But this war wasn't an ordinary war. It was for dharma, righteousness. It happened because there was a righteousness happening. Things were not happening correctly. There was cheating going on. The kingdom which technically belonged to the Pandavas, or should have been crowned to Maharaj Yudhishthira, was not given. Instead, it was taken away via cheating. So a dharma was growing, and Duryodhana was stubborn. He would not give up this kingdom which he wanted to inherit from his father. So hence this war happened to decide who gets this kingdom for the right reason. Now, that's the very easy explanation of why we've got this war happening. But you can actually take it a step back. There's a lot of actions by other forefathers of Duryodhana, of Yudhishthira, of Arjuna, that results in this Mahabharata war. So one can say actually, Dhritarashtra was greedy. He was a caretaker of the throne, but he had that greed that he wanted to keep the throne because he felt unfairly he wasn't king just because he was blind. You can take it a step further back. You can say, well, actually, if Bhishma didn't take a vow of celibacy and actually was like, you know what, I want to be king, forget what my dad desires, this might not have happened. You can take it to Maharaj Shantanu, Bhishma's father, and the action he took of like wanting to marry Satyavati. And then Satyavati's father made the condition, well, you can only marry my daughter if my grandsons become the king and not your son Bhishma. Or he was called Devrat back then. So you can see that there's a consequence of everyone's actions, everyone's karma playing out that resulted to this Mahabharata war. And that's a very important point, the karma we perform. So when we look at this verse in a bit more detail, it will all kind of make sense why I'm pointing out people's actions and karma. So we go back to the battlefield. Arjuna is confused. So Arjuna is one of the Pandava brothers. He's like one of the main heroes of this whole Mahabharata war. He's like the hero. He's like super skilled, super excellent. He's got Krishna as his friend and cousin brother. He's got Krishna as his charioteer. He's got divine weapons, all these blessings. He's got Hanumanji on his chariot, on his flag. I mean, victory is there. He shouldn't be worried about fighting. He should know that actually, Krishna's with me. I'm going to be victorious. But he's still confused. He gets confused. He gets cold feet. He sees his relatives, his guru, his friends on the opposing side, and he refuses to perform his duty to fight. Because all of a sudden he realizes, I don't want to fight because I don't want to kill my friends and my family. I don't want to get the sin of fighting my guru and killing him, for example. So he gives up his duty and he's scared. So he starts making all these excuses of why he doesn't want to fight. And they're valid excuses if you look at it from a normal point of view. You will realize that, okay, if I kill all these people, there's going to be imbalance in society. There's going to be less warriors, less kshatriyas to protect everyone. If there's no protection, then obviously society is going to collapse. And there's going to be unwanted progeny, unprotected women, unprotected children. He had valid points. Because technically speaking, that Mahabharata war was going to be a massive genocide of sorts, and it was going to literally eradicate most kshatriyas, most warriors, most kings from the planet. So he had a point. But he's more worried about the result on himself. He's worried about the sins he believes he's going to incur by performing such actions. So he's confused. But in that confusion, he surrenders to Krishna. So chapter 2 in verse 7, if you're following this verse from home or if you've been reading it, he surrenders to Krishna in his confusion, which is a good thing to do. You surrender to someone for advice when you're confused and you don't know what's right or wrong. Now Krishna takes him in his shelter, and this is where the Bhagavad Gita starts. So Krishna points out to Arjuna that actually you thinking on the bodily platform, you thinking from being attached to this bodily platform, and he's pointing out that actually every body, everyone, so pun intended, body, material body, everybody on the battlefield is going to die regardless of whether he takes part in this war or not. Whether he performs his action and duty or not, these people are still going to die. Because whoever is born in this world, naturally, they will always face death. So there's no such thing as an immortal body in the material world. Even Hiranyakashipu, who tried to get immortality in this material world, couldn't really get away with death. So there's no escaping. However, it's worth pointing out this war was done from a point of dharma. So this battle had to happen. People had to actually fight each other till death. But in reality, in modern world, we try and avoid that. But yes, over there, it was a necessity. So it was Arjuna's duty as a Kshatriya to fight to the point of death. But he didn't want to do this because he was attached on the bodily platform, because he's recognized his uncle, his cousins, his friends, his guru on the other side. Whether they're on the right side or the wrong side, he's attached from a bodily platform. So Krishna then points out that actually you're thinking from the wrong place. You should be thinking from the perspective of the soul. So Krishna points out that the soul is eternal, indestructible, and untouched. So technically speaking, he shouldn't be lamenting about fighting these people and them ending their lives in this material body, because technically speaking, the soul is eternal. They're always going to live on as the soul. So Krishna points out two important verses. Krishna points out two important verses in this chapter, verse 13 and verse 14. So verse 13 you might have heard, Dehinosmin yata dehe komaram yovanam jara tata dehantara prapti dhirastatra namuyate. As the embodied soul continuously passes in this body from the boyhood to youth to old age, the soul similarly passes into another body at death. A sober person is not bewildered by such a change. So basically Krishna is pointing out the soul is eternal. Stop worrying about, when people give up their body or when they pass away due to battle, because that's all temporary. And then the second verse after that, verse 14, Matra sparshasta konteya sitoshna sukadukata agama paniyo nityas tam stitik shava bharata. He's pointing out you are lamenting because you are under your sense control. Well, under the control of your senses in one sense rather than sense control. The sense perception is giving him the feeling of happiness and distress. So Krishna is pointing out, well, one needs to learn to tolerate the happiness and distress of this world like winter and summer seasons. It comes and goes. But your disturbance is arising from your sense perception. So basically Krishna is stressing to Arjuna in this chapter at the start that, well, one who's born is going to die, therefore perform your duty without lamentation, which is to fight. And one needs to understand that the soul is separate from the material body and its senses. So we need to find out our true constitutional position, our original position from a soul perspective. We need to understand who we are from a soul perspective, and that is the only way in which we can break our bondage with this material body. So this is where Krishna is really trying to drum into Arjuna, think from your soul. Think from a soul perspective, not from the material body as perspective. So then Krishna goes on to instruct Arjuna further about how to escape this bondage with the body. So basically one needs to perform this specific duty and activities on religious principles which nourishes the soul and which will lead to liberation. But he's pointing out two main things here. That number one, perform one's duty regardless of loss or gain, victory or defeat, and you will not incur sins. So don't worry about the result. And this is where we're going to come into this verse. But how do we break this bondage with the material body? How do we break this material conception and go to the soul? To take it a step further, Krishna begins to instruct Arjuna on how to work without gaining fruitive results. Because if one works with fruitive results in mind, i.e. karmakanda activity, which was discussed in yesterday's verse, it will just cause further bondage to the body, and it will make you go through the cycle of birth and death in this material world again and again and again. Therefore, people who are stuck with karmakanda activities, they tend to struggle to have a resolute determination to actually go beyond that cycle, which is to perform activities in the mode of pure goodness. So we're stuck with these modes of goodness, which is goodness, sattva, gun, passion, rajas, and ignorance, tama, tamasic guns. So everyone's technically got a mixture of these, and these mixtures lead us to actually be a certain character, a certain person. And we'll have certain skill sets, certain kind of characteristics, which we can utilize as duty. So people who are like very passionate, they tend to be sports stars, like Virat Kohli. You need the aggression to hit the sixes and the fours. People who are in the mode of goodness might be teachers, for example. So you can see people's prescribed duties does come out of their nature, which is naturally in them. But we need to find a way to excel beyond being stuck in those three modes and using that nature to get out of this material conception. So, whilst the karmakanda activities are prescribed in the Vedas, the actual ultimate purpose of the Vedas is to understand and realize that one's true constitutional position is on the spiritual plane. And hence we reach today's verse. So we're trying to take Krishna's help here and understand that actually we need to break our cycle with the material life. And the way we can do that is by actually performing our prescribed duties in the best way possible, but not being attached to the fruits of the results from a material conception. So, Shri Radha Gokulananda ki jai, Shri Sitaram Lakshman Hanuman ji ki jai, Shri Gaur Nitai ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai. So the next arati will be at 7 o'clock, so we've still got some time. So please do try and stay in this class if you can. So let's go to this verse now today. So what is the actual constitutional position of the pure soul, the Atma? So what is our original position? If we're not this material body with the soul, but what is our position as a soul? So number one is distinct from this material body. It's actually separate. So therefore, to get away from this bondage, we need to distance ourselves from what holds us with this material body, and that is karma. That's the reactions of our activities from a material perspective. So we need to distance ourselves away from the karma we gather via this body in this material world. And the main purpose of the Vedas is self-realization, i.e., we need to find out the Atma's real relation with the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Sri Krishna. So some would even say that rather than finding our purpose is to re-establish our relationship, because technically speaking, we originally are part and parcel of Krishna, but we've forgotten that relationship. So Arjuna is getting instructed by Sri Krishna that work in Nishkam Karma Yoga. So Nishkam means, technically Kam means desire. Nishkam Karma Yoga means to serve and do one's duty selflessly without the worry of the result and be detached from its reward. So why is Krishna saying this? So let's talk about the purport itself. There's 3 types of activities mentioned. So Krishna is saying to be detached from the result. So to not have any desire, nishkam. So let's understand the 3 types of activities mentioned by Srila Prabhupada. So there's prescribed duties, capricious work, and inaction. So prescribed duties means that you basically are performing the duties acquired according to your mode of nature. You're performing your natural activities, things that you trained up to do, things you are qualified to do, things you are trusted to do. So if you're performing your duty in a nice way and performing these activities, that's pretty much mode of goodness, and that's pretty much a good thing. Capricious work means you're performing activities that you're not sanctioned to do. So you're basically doing things that you're not qualified to do. You might be do things whimsically, without training, without authority giving you approval to do it, and you're basically not following instructions. So that normally causes havoc. So you never try and do something that you're not being trained to do or you are not accustomed to do, because it's going against your nature, number one. Number two, you're probably going to cause havoc. So that's not good. And then there's inaction. Basically not doing anything. Someone might say, well, if I'm going to cause trouble, I might as well not do something. But again, that's not good either. Because inaction, as Srila Prabhupada says in the purport, inaction is sinful. There's actually a three-worded sentence in that purport. Inaction is sinful. So Arjuna didn't want to fight. That's inaction. And instead, he wanted to renounce everything and sit quietly in the corner, thinking that no karma will be gained by doing anything. But technically speaking, it's the nature of a human being to be active. We have to do activities. We can't be inactive. So the most misuse of a human life is to be inactive. So that's technically wrong. So Arjuna is being told off by Krishna here, saying, perform your duty. Don't do inaction, because inaction actually incurs sin, because you're neglecting your duty. So the Lord advises Arjuna, fight, don't be inactive, to perform your prescribed duty. Now you can see inaction in a different manner in the Mahabharata as well, which led to people getting their dues. So in the Mahabharata, there's a very infamous part, a sad part, where Draupadi is getting insulted in the Rajya Sabha, in the Royal Assembly during the gambling match. Now, in that situation, technically speaking, Dhritarashtra, Bhishma, Drona, Kripacharya, elders, seniors, could have stepped in and stopped that matter from happening. They could have stopped Draupadi from being insulted by Duryodhana. But instead, they all sat there silently. That's inaction. Because technically, as a Kshatriya, as a king, they should have been protecting. So you can see inaction doesn't lead to any good results. And as subsequently in this Mahabharata war, Bhishma died on a bed full of arrows in a painful way. Drona got decapitated. Dhritarashtra lost all his sons. All of these people were quiet. And they basically did inaction. So that inaction, they had to pay the result for it, which wasn't a good one. So never do inaction, always do your duty. Now in a 1966 lecture on this very same verse, Srila Prabhupada states the following: karma means work. One should not think that because I'm not this body, I shall cease to work. No, you cannot cease to work. If you cease to work, then the idle brain will be a devil's workshop. So we've heard this saying a lot of times, an idle brain is a devil's workshop. And Srila Prabhupada points out here, you have to be active. So you have to work. So therefore, the Lord says the technique for acting on the spiritual platform is that you have your right to act. You have your right to act according to your position. But this verse, karmanyavadikaraste ma phaleshu kadachana. But you should not desire to enjoy the fruit of your activity. So why is Srila Prabhupada mentioning this? So the technique is that we should not desire to enjoy the fruit of our activity, but we need to detach ourselves from the result. And we can only do this by working on the spiritual plane, by performing devotional service, or at least associating everything with Krishna. Now this is another main point, and a misunderstood point about this verse. We are saying to detach yourselves from your results of your activities, but that's material activities. We need to attach ourselves to the spiritual result. So our karma that we do, how can we do that? We can only do that by performing devotional service and associating every action we perform in our life with Krishna. Offering it to Krishna. Try and be Krishna consciousness. This movement is called International Society for Krishna Consciousness. That's what ISKCON stands for. So to be Krishna conscious in all our activities. Now it's worth pointing out that when we perform our actions and if we're not attached to the material results, we're still getting some fruits of the results. Because if we're going to be Krishna conscious, we're actually going to get better results, which is spiritual benefits. Material benefits is temporary. It's karma that you're going to get. So for example, you become a millionaire, you've got this money materially, but how are you using that money? If you're going to use it in a bad way, you're going to incur sinful reactions. If you're going to use it in a good way, philanthropically, for example, you set up hospitals, you set up schools, that's good results, but it's still material results. So how do we make our results spiritual? Do everything in association and in consciousness of Krishna. Offer the results to Krishna. So how do we get this everlasting benefit? Well, real peace comes from detachment of the material outcome. So we're always worrying about things like, oh, I need to pass my exam, oh, I need to try and get a job, etc. And you might try your best materially, and things might work, things might not work, based on your karma, material karma. But if we detach from the result and we understand that we've done our best, then you're not going to get so worked up about the failures and the success. And at the same time, you won't get materially attached. And that's what we're trying to do here. So, for example, Srila Prabhupada, he was actually a grahastha before he became a sannyasi. And as a married man, he ran a pharmaceutical or a chemical company or a business. And he tried to expand it in Jhansi, but it never worked out. But he never got disappointed by the fact that his business didn't work out. Instead, he kind of took the message that, okay, I've got something better to do, or it's not working out for whatever reasons, let me move on and do something else and not be attached to this failure. But in fact, what did we get in return? We actually got the biggest medicine house in this planet, which is this movement. This is the best medicine we can get, associating with Krishna, being in bhakti. So Srila Prabhupada ultimately got something better, but he actually got something even spiritually better, and he shared it with us, which is a spiritual gain. So it's always best to try and associate everything with Krishna bhakti. That's the safest thing. And that's what Krishna is trying to point out in this verse. So as far as prescribed duties are concerned, there's 3 subdivisions mentioned in this verse. Routine work, emergency work, and desired activities. So routine work's where you're performing your prescribed duty, as we've been speaking about. You're performing as per your training, as per your karma, as per your material mode of nature, and you are giving it to Krishna. Emergency work is, for example, you're filling in for a position which someone's not doing their work properly, or there's no qualified person to do it, and that's not a bad thing to do. Even in the Bhagavatam, there's stories about Lord Indra's position. If someone's not qualified, or Lord Brahma's position, Krishna expands himself out and takes that position temporarily. So it's always good to do emergency work as well. Go beyond your normal prescribed duties in a good way. And then there's desired activities. Now this is an interesting one. Desired activities is basically you performing some form of activity with the attraction to the result for your own sake. So this is the thing. We desire something. Now, as human beings, it's natural to have desires. Because if you didn't have desires, you're not going to have any motivation to do anything in life. So we want to, for example, earn money so we can pay our bills, we can pay our mortgage, etc. We might want to, for example, after working hard, treat ourselves. There's nothing wrong with that, because you want to reward yourself in a nice way. However, if we keep on playing to the concept of work hard, play hard, and we forget Krishna in all of this, that's where our troubles start, and because we're getting attached to the material result of that work. So we start to desire for our own senses, our own pleasure, and this is where that fruit entangles us to the karma that binds us to the material body again and again. So the Bhagavad Gita teaches us to stop acting in a selfish manner. That's the main thing about this verse. Don't think from your own perspective. Perform your duty in a selfless manner. But in this material world, in this modern world, we are taught the opposite of this in modern society. We are taught to work hard, play hard. So how do we get out of this concept? So to get out of this platform of performing duty to be attached to the fruits of results is performing Krishna Bhakti. Put Krishna at the center of your life. Now, how can we do this? There's a nice verse in Chaitanya Charitamrita, Adi Lila, chapter 4, text 165. Atmendriya priti vancha tare balikam, Krishnendriya priti icha dhare premanam. So the main understanding of this verse is the desire to gratify one's own senses is kam, lust. And lust, as you'll read on in the Bhagavad Gita, makes you get attached to your material bodily concept and the material life. Because if you don't get what you like, you don't achieve your lust, your desire, that will lead you to anger, krodha. When you get angry, you get krodha, all these negative thoughts and vices come into you. And that is no good. That's not going to help you get released from this material concept. So we shouldn't try and go satisfy our own senses, but the desire to please the senses of Lord Krishna is prema. So real love is actually if you're pleasing Krishna's senses. So if you work on that perspective, that's the safest perspective. Work on pleasing Krishna's senses, not your own senses. But while pleasing Krishna's senses, naturally you will feel fulfilled. So one may hear this verse and be like, hang on a minute, does that mean I can't have any desires? I can't have any material desires? Again, as I mentioned, we're human beings. Naturally, we have material desires. We have a lot of baggage to clear. But we can't snap our fingers and clear that overnight. So how do we gradually clear those material desires and turn it into spiritual desires? So we need to make an effort. We need to perform Krishna Bhakti. We need to have faith in Krishna that, okay, whatever I do is going to be with you in mind, but whatever I receive from you is going to be for my benefit spiritually as well. So a lot of people pray for desires in front of the Lord. And there's nothing wrong with that. In the Bhagavad Gita, you'll also hear that one who's inquisitive, one who's desiring something, one who's like, looking for answers, one wants material things. It's not wrong to approach the Lord because that's your starting point of bhakti. So yeah, approach the Lord. Sing your I want a house and a car and a color TV. Jai Jagadisha Hare. We can pray that. But pray that prayer that even if you receive those stuff, you're going to use it in Krishna Bhakti. So for example, if you want a house, fine, Pray for that house. But pray with the intention that you are actually going to use it in Krishna's service. You're going to, as a family, turn that house into a home and perform Krishna Bhakti together under that same roof. You're going to, host devotees. You're going to basically make that house another temple. If you've got that in mind, there's nothing wrong with making that prayer to Krishna for that house. I'll give you an example of a car. When I passed my driving test, I didn't really have a car of my own. But I wanted to get to the manor. And I didn't want to rely on lifts from my parents. I didn't want to rely on lifts from friends. I wanted to come as and go when I wanted. So I wanted a car, but my desire of the car was not just for sense gratification, but it was so I can use this car to get to the manor. Now, most of you have probably all come by car because there's no public transport to the manor, right? There's no way of unless you're making a long walk. You might use Uber, but Uber's technically someone else's car that you're paying for. So technically speaking, we all have that desire. If you want to get to the manor, we need a car. That's what I prayed for, and that's what I got. So I got a nice second-hand Volkswagen Polo, and I was happy with it. So there's nothing wrong with making prayers like that, but use it in Krishna's service. Put Krishna at the center of that prayer, and then you'll be detached from the material result and turn it spiritual. So when it comes to burning our karma that we already have, so what happens to that then? So Krishna's basically got the best intention for us. By performing devotional service, we're bound to change our karma. So you may have heard that by clapping in kirtan, by chanting rounds, you're actually changing the lines on your hands. So if anyone's into palmistry, you can check this. So if you're changing your lines, you're changing your fate. Krishna's changing it for you. So the same thing for our karmas. We've got many karmas. We have karmas that are mature, karmas that are about to fructify, karmas that are we've got these desires in our mind that's not fructified yet, it's in seed form, but technically they're all there and they could be sinful. By performing devotional service, Krishna can burn all of this down, so we don't have to suffer. By performing devotional service, Krishna basically speeds up the karma that we need to burn or eradicates them. Now, I can give you one other example in my life. I joined quite many years ago as a family. We used to come and help volunteer, and then we started volunteering regularly in the kitchen to make the Sunday feast. Now, one evening in February 2007, 5 minutes before leaving, we were cleaning the floor. The floor was wet. I was about to leave, but I slipped, and I fell, and I broke my arm in half in that kitchen. Now, in that time, I was thinking, oh my God, I just started a new job. This is going to affect me. Oh, I can't do activities which I'll enjoy, sports, etc. I'm stuck for 3 months with a broken arm because it was a proper clean cut. But what I didn't realize until after is that, technically speaking, in that spare time, I was able to actually pick up the Bhagavad Gita and read the Bhagavad Gita peacefully. I was able to actually get more serious in my devotional service. But another thing I didn't realize is that when I fell, someone pointed out, technically I should have hit the back of my head because I fell straight back, and I should have cracked my head. But instead, I fell on my arm. Somehow I turned. I see it as that performing devotional service, if you've got some karma that you have to burn, you'll burn it, but Krishna will lighten it up for you. So instead of cracking my head open, I broke my arm, and now my arm's fine. If I cracked my head wouldn't have been fine. So Krishna does take care of you in the most strangest ways. You have to have faith in him. So coming back to this verse, inaction is sinful. So one may think, well, actually, rather than performing karma and doing things, how about I just sit in a corner and do nothing? But Krishna's pointing out in this verse that actually inaction is sinful. We need to perform our karma and not misuse our human body and our human life. So how can we actually kind of centralize Krishna into our life, whether we got desires, whether we don't have desires, or whether we just want liberation from this material world? There's actually a nice verse in the Srimad Bhagavatam to help us understand this point, which I want to end on. The verse is from Canto 2, Chapter 3, Text 10. And the verse is, Akama sarva kamova, moksha kama udharadi, tivrena bhakti yogena yajeta purusham param. So a person who has broad intelligence, that's the udharadi, whether he be full of material desire, without any material desire, or desiring liberation, must by all means worship the Supreme Whole, the personality of Godhead. So basically the purport of this verse is, whether we've got material desires, whether we don't have material desires, whether we just want liberation from this world, guess what? If you've got any intelligence, perform intense Krishna Bhakti, because that's the safest way you will achieve any of these things. And by performing all these things, naturally you will then realize material desires are not really useful. Or if they are, make them useful for Krishna's service, which is the concept of Yukta Vairagya, like the car, which I have, right, to get to the manor to sell. But perform your duty, have spiritual desires. Try and convert your material desires to spiritual desires, and naturally you'll be in a safer position and not be incurring these material fruits. Instead, you'll be getting spiritual fruits, which is a long-term benefit. Now, this means that, we still have to point out that desirelessness means, therefore, not to be inert like a stone, as Srila Prabhupada says, but to be conscious of one's actual spiritual position and thus desire satisfaction only from the Supreme Lord. So not only do we want to desire Krishna's senses, we also want to be happy and content with how Krishna reciprocates that action which we performed for him back to us. Be happy with the gift that Krishna gives you in return. And then if you're going to be peaceful and happy that way, then naturally you will not be bound to this material body, the material concept, and you can forego the material fruits easily and be working on the platform of Krishna consciousness. So this is where I want to end this class, if that's okay with everyone. We've got a few minutes before Aarti, which is at 7 o'clock. But if anyone's got any questions or any comments or any realizations that they would like to share, please do. So if anyone does. Hare Krishna.
Any kind of attachment, whether positive or negative, there's a bondage.
Yeah.
So when I was remembering the Puja that we sing every day, that attachment to those spiritual masters.
Okay. First of all, I like your question, which will relate to the Guru. You've been asking many recently, which are nice to make that realization, so thank you for that. So, Mataji is asking about a line in the purport, and let me find it. Yeah. Any attachment, positive or negative, is a cause for bondage. Now it's worth remembering the bondage that Krishna is on about here to Arjuna is from the material conception. When it comes to Guru is seen as a representative of Krishna, as a representative of God. Because Krishna is not always going to come to you directly unless you are someone who's really gifted in spiritual blessings. So not all of us are lucky to have Krishna come right in front of us like Narasimha Mehta or Surdas, all these, famous saints. But the Guru is the next test.